Welcome to another episode of your favorite divorce group, Everything Real Estate, Divorce, and You, where we take a deep dive into topics that are affecting so many of you. And today is actually it's near and dear to my heart because it's something I'm going through personally. When kids graduate from high school, a lot of them go on to college. So I wanted to talk to you guys today and find out what our thoughts are, and of course, with Jeff, the legal section on what can people do when they're getting divorced. Can they plan ahead for college? And if they haven't planned ahead for college, what does that look like? Because it's quite pricey. It's quite pricey.
Slightly.
It's like my daily life is contacting different offices and trying to figure out, how to get funding and all of this. So it would make sense to me, when you're going through a divorce to try to figure that out. But I know when I went through my divorce, it wasn't on the top of my mind. The kids were young. I couldn't even fathom the college years. So
How old were your kids?
they were 5, 7, and 9.
Yeah, you definitely weren't thinking.
Yeah, I was like, let's just survive here.
Yes.
I wasn't even
Survival
thinking
mode.
about college. And in my mind, I'm like, well, my kids are so awesome. They're all going to get scholarships. So I don't have to worry about that. We're just going to have people begging us to come to their school. Well, that didn't actually happen. So we're in a place now where we've got to look at that. I'm, after the fact, but I'd love to hear, Jeff, your perspective on when you're litigating these cases. Do you see people considering that? Like, do they plan for education after high school?
Well, here's the thing. The court can't really do anything about a child after high school.
Mhm.
It's up to, I believe it's 19 and a half if they're still in high school. Otherwise, it's 18 if they're already out of high school.
Mhm.
Other than that, the court doesn't really have any jurisdiction or any authority to tell the parents what to do regarding their adult children.
Mhm.
But if the parents come to some sort of mutual agreement and build that into their agreement, then it could potentially be enforced.
Okay.
But most of the situations that we see aren't really people deciding what to do while they're going through a divorce. It's what they did before. So did they already set up any investment accounts, any funds, anything for their children?
529.
Yeah,
Anything.
all that different type of stuff. And if they did, usually what happens is in the court, in the final judgment of divorce or the settlement agreement or whatever we use to memorialize this, we'll put in there. Most of the time, it's that one of the two parents will be responsible for managing it, but the children are actually the beneficiaries and the owners of that account. But there'll be periodic instance where somebody has to show the statements to the other parent, right? They have to continue to if one parent's managing it and it requires active involvement and management, then they've got to do it consistent with how they did it in the past while they were married. And sometimes, listen, some people are fine with seeing a statement once a year. Others that don't necessarily trust their spouse or soon-to-be ex-spouse want to see it every month or every 3 months. Usually it's, hey, exchange statements once a year. And everybody monitors it, and the money goes to the children. Now, that's something that's very typical. Now, is it unheard of to create one while you're going through a divorce? No, not necessarily, but both parties would have to be in agreement with that.
When you say in agreement, does that talk about contributions? Can you write into divorce decree like you're going to put in X amount of money per month or a percentage? Is there a contribution?
You could do
agreement?
whatever you want, but the court's not gonna order that usually, right? But you could do whatever you want, and if you have an agreement that each parent's gonna put X number of dollars, I sometimes have clients that say, "Listen, in lieu of spousal support, or in lieu of the full amount of spousal support that I believe I'm entitled to, I'd rather have." X number of dollars go into an account for our children each month for their college. There's all different types of ways to structure it. And in that case, if it's an agreement, it becomes a binding agreement. But is the court ever going to say, hey, Holly, you have to put in $1,000 a month for your daughter's college education? No, they're not going to do that. But if you already had an agreement to do it, then your agreement is probably going to be enforceable.
That's what I wanted to ask. If it's in writing, like we didn't put that in writing. I don't believe it's in there. If it's in writing, it is something that you can, I don't know how they would, I don't know what they would do about it if somebody wasn't.
Well, it
holding up
depends if
their
it's
end.
in the settlement agreement and if those are part of the terms of your divorce
Mhm.
and in the property division, for example, and say you have an account that has $200,000 in it, and you guys both agree that $50,000 of that is going to come off the top and be put into a separate account that's going to go to fund college accounts for your kids, for example.
That's smart. Okay.
Then yes, that's enforceable.
Okay.
And that's something that could be done. But if you go into court and say, "Hey, judge, I want you to take 50,000 of our joint money, separate it for the kid's college account," I don't think they have any authority to do that. They can't do that.
Okay. That's good
You
to
know,
know.
unless
That's
you both
important.
agreed on it and it's binding at that
I think in more
point.
cases than not, though, is that people are not prepared. It's very difficult to save enough money for your kids for the education, especially through the divorce is coming up. It's having those. So really stepping in and understanding the student loans, I think it's really important. And I don't know if it's feasible or not, but if it could be put into the divorce decree to divide,
Well,
which spouse, because I see a lot of kids, and one of the things is 80, 100, 150,000, and a parent co-signed the loan, and it's like, it's like it's just a
Yeah.
ticking time bomb. It's just like a terrible thing. I don't like the system set up the way it is, but it's important, I think, going in, like with
Yeah.
your situation, one, if you have 3 kids or 2 of them, just you divide and conquer. You take the one, she takes the
Yeah.
other.
And sometimes people put in their agreement that they're going to cooperate in terms of, as long as it's reasonable in terms of assistance with loans for their children or different types of things. But usually that's, like Holly said, people aren't thinking about it at the time they get divorced. And it's not really encouraged because everybody's kind of in survival. Like I think you used the term survival mode, right?
Yeah.
Trying to figure out how they're going to survive. And we're concerned about our clients being able to move forward and focus on themselves. Because if they can focus on themselves, then in turn, it makes them healthier and more able to take care of their families as a result. So, and sometimes if people are going to fight over it, they're spending more money than the college tuition fighting over trying to come up with something. So sometimes it comes naturally after. But if somebody has, again, most of the situations I see is people either have something set up ahead of time or they don't. That 50,
529.
yeah, I'm not a financial expert. So, but whatever that's called, that number 529.
It's one of
type
many.
of, yeah. So that I'm seeing more and more these days in divorce cases where people already had that set up. And it's, hey, we're going to continue to maintain it the way we have been. We're going to provide transparency to other parent, but that money's for our kids. And there are sometimes people have actual, like the old fashioned way with a bank account, savings account, or whatever set up for their kids, for their college fund. And we just write into the agreement that account is the beneficiary such and such child or such and such children. It's going to continue to be maintained the way it was before. Statements are going to be exchanged. Usually it's it could be both parents on the account. It could be one of the parents, whatever's done and whatever's agreed to. But I guess my biggest thing is really consider agreeing on this stuff, because fighting about it's going to cost way more money than it's worth a lot of times.
Well, because you're talking about future. So you're fighting about a future. So here's the thing.
Of the unknown.
Right.
Is a kid going to go? Is a
That's
kid
my
not
point.
going to
Like
go?
my oldest, she didn't go. She's got her own path right now. She's in real estate
Very
with me, and
successful path.
she's doing
Yes.
great, and she's not taking the college route right now. So that's one down, right? So we have 2 now. My middle daughter is going away to state, which we're super
Go
excited about. Go
green.
green. But we're excited about that. But I'm looking at looking at how it costs, and I'm like, oh, that's less exciting. And then my son, he's already said he wants to probably go to Oakland. So we already know we've got one that wants to, be at the hilt of the top of the, pretty much the financial, well, besides Ivy League. And then my son who's going to, probably just be commuting to Oakland, which is a great school. That's where I went. But that's the thing. It's like, Ken and I have talked about this. We counsel people, like, he sees people and you see people, CC, that come with all this college debt. So we try and counsel them on, if you can get a co-signer outside of yourself. So that's where I'm at. I was lucky enough to talk to my dad. He's going to co-sign for the loan so that I don't have to, because of the ramifications long term.
Yeah. So if you want to sell your house, purchase a new house,
I want to buy a Florida house.
If you co-sign, that becomes part of your debt to income.
Exactly.
But real quick, I got a question about that, just for
Yes.
clarification. I didn't know, isn't it for a student loan for college for a kid, do they really even need a cosigner? Or I thought it's just for the living expense part of it, not the actual tuition.
That's your
But
question.
I don't know.
have no
I don't
idea.
know about that.
I'm not
from
there
what
yet.
Okay.
So I learn a little bit more every day, and I was extremely ignorant because I didn't go away to school. So I did a FAFSA form. That was awful. But I had done that, but I had never done any of this. So for me, like the different meetings they've had, I've haven't been able to go, but I've made calls to FAFSA. I've talked to financial aid offices, and from what it sounds like, it's like there's something called a Parent Plus loan. There's the federal subsidized, which is what you want, because that's where you don't pay any interest on it. The government takes care of the interest until the loans are due. And then the unsubsidized, which the loan does accrue, unfortunately, and then that's built in as part of the loan.
Is it still to where, like, I think undergrad is dependent on parents' income for what they
Yes.
can qualify or
So the
not, and then
FAFSA
grad school and professional school,
Yep.
you're on your own regardless, right?
FAFSA does that, and they wanted for 2023, they wanted because she lives with me, 2021 income, and I wanted to go back and say, can you look at 2022, because it's different for me and it's more recent. So that's where I'm at right now, is I'm kind of appealing it so that they will take a look, because a lot has changed. I'm not getting child support anymore and all these other things. The kids are older, so I wanted them to take that into account. So hopefully they will, and it'll change. But there's a lot to that, and co-signing your name to these loans. Again, I want to be able to get a place down in Florida. I want to be able to sell my house and get another home here somewhere.
It will undoubtedly affect your ability to do that in the time frame, but it can be managed out. If you manage it out over time, there's different ways you can manage it, student loan, to account for your goals. Because if you just defer the payments, you have to take a half of 1% of whatever the total amount is. But if it's an income-based repayment plan, you can use that income-based repayment plan. So there's different ways you can manage that debt. But if you just walk into it not knowing, it's going to affect your ability and potential, your child's ability to buy a house when they get out of school.
Right.
So
And that's what I was just about to say, because you and I have a client together who, unfortunately, the student loan debt is significant. And when you see that, that's hard. It's crippling that generation of individuals who've gone to college. And I see from 100,000, I've seen one at 220,000. They're not a doctor. They're not a chiropractor. Wow. It's nothing like that. And they're only going to be making 80,000, 100,000.
I saw 480,000 a chiropractor coming out. 480,000.
Yeah, I'm not surprised.
I just wanted to breathe into a paper bag, and they come out and say, "Here's your desk. Go find your clients."
But isn't that why they do those? They have like a doctor loan.
He's not a doctor. He can't get a doctor.
He's talking about a chiropractor though. I'm thinking, because that's considered.
They don't get a doctor loan.
They don't get a doctor loan.
Chiropractors don't.
And they have that student loan debt.
Ooh, I didn't know that.
It's a very tough path for chiropractors.
That is tough.
A lot of respect for them. So.
Yeah.
Especially since like they're, more into, I think you're more into health, being able to keep people healthy through chiropractic. I think so much. Well, that's another subject for my own opinion. So let's get off of there.
We're talking about health, because before we end today, we're gonna do a weigh-in, because you've been doing a spectacular job on your health goals. So we'll put a pin in it for now, but we're gonna come back to that. So it's a good.
But there's one thing in regard to health though that I know we talked about that's really important, and I saw it 3 times as clients that with the parents came and a child passed away, and the parent got stuck with the student loan
because they co-signed.
That
for
is
it.
tragic, and you told me what to do about that.
And this is something that's really important for any parents. And I told my brother, he's got like 200 and something thousand. They both went to way to school, but Hillsdale College, which isn't cheap. But it's just to get a term life policy. So if you get a term life policy, and I'm not an insurance or investment person, but it's fairly cheap when you have a 20-year-old child in good health to get that term life. So if something happens, you got that to pay it off. Because the one lady was like 61. Her son was a pilot, and it was like 120,000 in debt, and she was a nurse at 61. So she had this.
She can't retire.
Yeah, no. So, but it's really important that if you do co-sign, to consider doing, and you have these loans, to do the term life policies, or you can do a whole life policy, because you can probably get $250,000 probably for, I don't know, it's pretty cheap for a 20-year-old kid. So,
and if they make
and then they can inherit that.
Some loans, and I'm not an expert on this, I'm still learning, but some loans, if the student is making, once that they come due, 6 months after I believe they graduate,
it is.
If they make 12 consecutive payments that aren't late, then you can potentially remove the cosigner, and it's just the student that bears that. So that's another thing that I'm keeping in mind, the types of loans that I look at. I want to be able to have her take that full responsibility, and she needs to understand that this is just going to be you And, you know, if my dad or whoever co-signs on it, they would be taken off as long as these payments are made on time.
And that's something where you can plan ahead. If you were, let's say, you were co-signed on the loan, and a year from now you're going to buy the house, you can take them, even if she qualifies for deferment, you can take them out of deferment and do an income-based repayment plan, and it might be $20 a month. We can use that payment, and you know, instead of the half of 1%, because if it's 100 grand, half of 1% is $500 a month.
Because
that may
the
affect
deferment, when you're in deferment, from what I understand from you, the payment is higher because they don't actually see a
Qualifying
real
payment.
payment
Yeah.
yet.
Correct.
So if you actually have something on paper, my payment is $200 a month.
Then we can take that payment.
Much better than half of a
Yeah,
percent.
the income payment, we can take that. That's
Yeah.
better than the 200 versus 500. Like what
Sure.
Ken was saying, it's important to understand how to diversify that debt and how to use it to get to at least the housing industry. But the worst thing about it is with your client, you can't file bankruptcy on student loans.
Right.
She
'cause it's a
can't do that.
government-
Yeah, she
especially
can't.
if it's a government backed. I don't know about the private loans though. Are those the same rule? A government, I would assume.
I'm pretty.
That's an
you know
interesting-
that?
No clue.
No
Yeah.
clue. Okay, we're gonna
Yeah.
put a pin in that.
Yeah, we'll come back on
We're
that
gonna have to
because
put a
All
pin
right,
together.
let's-
Yeah.
but we don't want anyone to have to
Let's
do
do
that
my way
anyways.
in
We
over
want
here.
to avoid that at all
Yes.
costs. So like anything.
All right. Oh, go ahead.
No, like anything, count your costs first, do your research, make sure you know what the best situation is for your family. You
But
and
you
your
may never know
ex-spouse
the
talk.
best, so you just got to make the best decision.
Yeah, do the best
you
at the
can
time.
make at
Yeah.
the time with the information you gather
Because
from
most of us
reliable
are
sources.
post-divorce trying to figure this out.
Yeah, everybody's trying to figure everything out.
Yeah.
No, I don't know that anybody knows the right answer to anything
No.
when it comes to that
We're
stuff.
all just trying.
I'm living
Yeah.
my
We'll
best
just
life
keep
right
swimming.
now.
Just keep swimming.
All right.
That's what
All
we're doing.
right, do we get a
All
drum
right,
roll?
Well,
Drum
I
roll.
think
We
we
need a
got somebody
drum.
that's really eager today to weigh in,
Yes,
and
look at
he's been
that
slower to
shirt.
the jump before to that scale, but today he's jumping up
He's-
fast.
But look, he
It's says 220.6, but I think a couple pounds are taken off the carpet.
off the carpet.
220.6.
You have your
'cause
glasses
nobody can
on, you
hear
got
him
your
'cause he's
belt
not
on,
mic'd
so
right
you're
now.
actually lighter than
We're
that.
like 119.
So 220.6.
So you're down
That's
how much?
Amazing.
Down like 30.
That's
All right.
Jeff's, and remember the deal. Jeff's gonna get you a suit. So Jeff starts step
19
We'll have,
months.
we'll have Bill
19
come
I'm gonna
measure
be
you
doing
up
jump
and-
ropes and
let's
like
do it.
in the
Let's do it. How long do we have to go till when? When's your birthday?
In the sauna, like
Oh,
before
yeah.
the morning before our last one.
When's your birthday?
July 2nd.
All right.
So
coming
Time's
up.
ticking. Time's ticking. See if you can do it.
No, this is
You're
perfect.
doing great.
Yep. All
That's
right.
awesome.
So
Rounding out, thank you for bringing this to our attention. I know you're going through this. This is brand new. It is such crucial information that a lot of us don't talk about, just like what Jeff said. You don't think of it at that time.
Right.
But to start discussing this and giving this value to our viewers, I love this topic. Thank you for bringing this up and to our attention to give to everybody
and
else.
call us
Oh,
on
absolutely.
it. Call us on it because we like to
Yes.
talk about this stuff and talk it through. We're not experts on everything, but it's a process of teaching you what we know, and then the questions that you have for us is stuff like, you know, just like the private loans that you said is stuff that we like to look into and see how it changes things. But yeah,
yeah,
All right.
the whole point is make a plan, work your plan. And it was a great discussion, and it's something I'll keep you guys posted on how it goes. But I just want to thank all of our listeners for tuning in. And if this is your first time tuning in, or even if it's not, make sure you tap the bell and subscribe. Also like us so that we know you're here and so that you get notified of all of our shows. And we will see you all next time.
see ya.
Thank you.